And don't get me wrong. I was in drama for a couple of days.
For a couple of days. I love your honesty. Welcome to Life's Messy, Live Happy. I'm Wakeman. I'm a drama researcher, and I'm a huge advocate of a more modern leadership philosophy called reality-based leadership. Traditional leaders are focused on managing people, and I'm here to let you in on a little secret. It's not about managing your people. It's about managing energy. See, leaders aren't in the business of managing people any longer. They're in the business of managing the energy of people, the energy of the situation, and most importantly, great leaders are managing energy away from why we can't to how we could. And you do this with some great questions or some great tools, and that's what we teach in reality-based leadership. As part of the show, I love to take questions, either questions from you viewers or questions that we hear when we're out in the field. This is Alex Dorr. He is one of my partners here at Reality Based Leadership, spends a ton of time out on the road presenting the philosophy and training people up on how to be reality-based leaders. And so I like to check in once in a while and just ask, what are the top questions? What are you getting hit with out there?
Yeah, I think we do get hit with a lot throughout our sessions. And one of the big ones that keeps coming up, even though we got content out there on it, is this idea of venting. And in our sessions, we get through kind of the power of our stories and how they lead to our suffering, but then someone in the end always asks, but isn't some venting still healthy, or isn't it great to get it off our chest? And as we get into, we know that venting is the ego's way of avoiding self-reflection, and it leads to just a lot of chaos in the workplace.
So here's the deal about venting. Venting feels good. I get it. The ego just doesn't want to give it up. So people are like, please just let me have a good vent and then I'll move on. And I'm like, but venting isn't useful. Venting feels good, but so does crack cocaine, right? And it's not a sustainable lifestyle. So let's get to the bottom of this. Venting feels good, yes, but it's not productive, and it leads you farther away from solutions.
Definitely.
It gets you into the part of your brain that's all ego and is externally focused and is focused on my circumstances and my excuses and my reasons and how the world should change. But where your peace comes from is when you get self-reflective. And your brain cannot self-reflect and vent at the same time. It's binary. It's like a toggle switch. You're in your lowest self, venting, or your highest self, self-reflection. And you've got to bypass the ego. So self-reflection is the foundation of accountability. Accountability is death to the ego. And venting is the ego's way of avoiding accountability and self-reflection. So let's take a look at this. Most of what you're venting about never even happens. And venting, actually, when you vent, you create neural pathways. And neural pathways are strange things because they need to be fed with the same behavior that created them. So once you form a neural pathway with venting, guess what? It's gonna itch.
Here it comes
and
again,
then you've got to vent more. And so it's really difficult because you'll find that venting just begets more venting. Venting is different than sharing feelings. So when I was a therapist, people would share a feeling. I am frustrated with Alex. Okay, and I would go, that's nice, that's perfect. Now you're done sharing a feeling. Then they'd want to go into venting because Alex never does what he needs to do, and he does this crap on purpose, and I know what he's thinking, and he's just trying to make me look bad in front of the boss, and he's not held accountable, and I do everything right. Okay, all of that after I'm frustrated with Alex because he didn't give me what I wanted
is the
story you've made up, and that's where your suffering begins. I'm frustrated with Alex. He didn't give me the work I needed. What could I do next that would add value? I could go to Alex and say, Alex,
start a conversation.
How you coming on some of this work I really need? So the venting part is a story. And most people don't get this, that most of what they're venting about never even happened. Venting has to have a villain and a victim, and you're helpless. And folks, you are never the victim. You're never helpless. You don't have these villains, at least at work, that you think that you do. Try just 20 minutes where you have to be accountable to the truth. No venting. You have to go in and tell somebody the story in a neutral way. And here's what you're going to notice. Not only are you more peaceful, but you just don't have a lot to talk about. You're going to get really quiet and you're going to get really reflective. And right after that, you're going to get really happy and successful. I'm so excited to have Shelley Sweethelm join me today in the roundtable segment of this episode. And Shelley was doing amazing big things before we ever met, and you incorporated reality-based leadership. But I get so jazzed when there are people who are taking reality-based leadership and incorporating it into their work, out into the world in big ways. And I love that you're here. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Lots of people know the philosophy and are getting introduced to the philosophy. What I want to focus on is like, how do you apply this like in your daily life? Because once you know it and you live differently, we make it look easy, but it's not that easy at times. So do you have any great stories that you can tell on yourself about how you screw this up only daily and use the philosophies to get back on track?
Yeah, I feel like I'm sort of a magnet to the emotional drama these days. And you know, for 30 years of my career, I felt like this would have been amazing if I'd had this.
Yeah, you said that to me when we met. You're like, I wish I would have had this 30 years ago.
Yeah, it has in many ways simplified my life.
Love that.
I feel like now I spend the majority of my time coaching instead of spending it listening to stories and then trying to fix things.
I love that. So do you have any good stories to tell on yourself from when you maybe weren't practicing reality-based leadership? Have you fallen into?
You know, I think it's the judging piece.
Okay.
So for example, you know, everybody has a budget to achieve, and I've always been really accountable to my budgets in my work. And some new information came out, you know, we've all got to kind of tighten up and make this happen. And my first thought was, can't do this to me, and you know, I've always done this, and you know,
it's unfair. I'm the one who's always been on budget. You should look over there at all those people.
Yeah.
That's how I react.
So then I was meeting with my team to kind of brainstorm ideas, and I thought to myself, you know, maybe it isn't our direct accountability that we can achieve, but we influence so many things in the organization. So we actually put together a laundry list of all of the initiatives that our departments have achieved in the last year and the ones going forward that we're currently working on. We had lots of savings. So it was just a different way of approaching it. Instead of thinking it as total cost reduction, expense reduction, really thinking about how do we contribute and how do we influence this within the organization with no real direct accountability.
I love it.
And don't get me wrong, I was in drama for a couple of days.
For a couple of days. I love your honesty. I love your honesty.
I was like, no. And then, you know, you're trying to find solutions.
As a leader, what helps people trust us is not that we pretend to not have this human condition. It's that we're just honest about it. It's like, you know, the biggest thing you can do as a leader is come in and say, folks, I need to apologize. I've misled you. For 2 days, I've been with you talking negatively about this new request.
Yeah.
I need to stop, and I need to invite you to stop. That is so authentic to say, folks, let's really open this up and figure this out. Because people then see that you're human, but you're also self-reflecting, and it gives them permission to self-reflect as well.
It also allowed me to see all the great work that they're doing, which they're not itemizing for me every day.
That's cool.
You know, so that was cool in and of itself and really gave the opportunity to really recognize them for that too.
When you look at the roles of a traditional leader, it can be managing and directing work and production. And if you really want to go to the next level, it's more about facilitation and brokering and self-reflection and influencing. Mm-hmm. And that's really where the work gets done. And as we watch organizations, the hierarchy just crumble, where we don't have this hierarchy, work is getting done in virtual teams across the globe. When that happens, we need a more modern leadership style that can work even when I'm not your boss. You were a pretty peaceful person when I met you, but it seems like this has added a lot of peace to your life.
It's I'm no longer anxious about challenging meetings or large groups. I've always done a lot of thinking ahead. That's part of my thought on what do I want to achieve with this outcome or this meeting or whatever. But I almost am eager for whatever comes my way, just to kind of think through how to
Which, when you
navigate it.
have tools, folks, you're going to get willing and eager and excited for what's next, like great expectancy. I love that. I love that. And what I love about the way you're walking with this philosophy is more laid back, even better results. And that's so counterintuitive to most people, that I can be more at peace, less anxious, less driving, less controlling, and can actually, in an hour phone call with a vendor, go from no plan to how we're going to get this done to a prototype in a month.
Yeah.
And nobody had to yell or scream or threaten, or it's just a peaceful way to move throughout the world.
It's been freeing for me from a leadership perspective.
Awesome.
So
I hear
love
that word a lot, freedom.
Yeah.
Well, I absolutely adore you, and I'm so glad that you have come by. So.
Feelings mutual, for sure.
What a great episode. I hope you're loving this content. Do me a favor, share with everybody you can think of, because this is the one show that your boss wants you watching at work.